And so you start falling more into yourself, and when you're more in yourself, you start to see things from different points of view. So when you're angry, you don't often see anybody else's point of view. Fair enough. Nobody's expecting you to. You can't, because you're angry. You need to dish it out. But basically what happens is you remove yourself from that situation for a moment. And the moment can be a year, okay? So you don't put yourself back into that situation until you can see yourself that you have attended to your own needs, and until you have something constructive to put forth into trying to resolve the situation. Sometimes the only constructive thing to do is to say, I am not willing to do this right now. Perhaps down the road we can revisit this issue. But right now I don't have the capability of dealing with this. Or you can say, it really seems like we can't see eye to eye here. I don't know if we can, if we ever can. If it's a fundamental values clash, which can't be sorted out, then, sometimes you just need not to be co-creating with that person. And you won't possibly be ever able to go back into that situation without inflaming it again. So it's not so much that, you go away and then you should gather yourself and then you should go back into the conversation. No, you don't go back into that conversation until you know that you have been heard by you or somebody that you trust, and that you can see that other person and see that they're also coming from a place of hurt. You do not go into that conversation until that is done. And sometimes it might be like a question of work. Well, I have to work. I still have to work. So I still have to, deal with this boss or deal with this person. And in those situations, what really helps you is realizing that you don't have to be in that job forevermore, and that you can choose to tolerate the situation as it is. You can choose to be in conflict, or you can choose to let your boss win all your arguments until you find another job. So sometimes you can't go back, and that's when people fall out. You can't go back, and sometimes it's right not to go back. Sometimes you can't get through to another person. Sometimes you can't forgive something that is fundamentally so wrong, and that's just how it is. We all have different values, and if something is completely violating your value, or somebody is completely violating a value that is really dear to your heart and is a big part of you, then maybe you shouldn't be co-creating with that person. For example, in relationships, some people have a value of, say, integrity or trust in relationships, or loyalty. Let's take loyalty. And if that person is in a relationship with a narcissist, it's not a great position to be in, because narcissists can only really be loyal to themselves, and they'll trample anybody who'll get on their way of feeling important. So sometimes it's appropriate not to go back into the conflict. The person who asked that question, I've put your mic on. Any comments on, any thoughts on that?
That clarifies things. Thank you. Yeah, that's what the idea was, to go back to the conversation, so that you weren't, if for no other reason, so that you weren't. What you said makes sense.
Okay, great. Does anybody else have any comments? Anybody else want to ask about anything that we've covered so far? Feel free. Okay, so we have a message here. Yes, and the whole point is that you take a moment to find what's your own truth in that situation. Absolutely. Absolutely. You need to know what your own truth is. And if you know what your values are, you will know what your own truth is. And then, as somebody has messaged, when you then you can go back and try and speak that truth as well as you can. Absolutely. That is absolutely right. The person who wrote that comment, I'm going to turn your mic on. So if you want to explore, or if you want to say in your own words what you meant with your comments, feel free.
Hello. Always a bit scary for a Finn to speak like this, but yeah, I've been thinking about many kinds of past relationships as you've been talking, and I also have a history of abusive and bad relationships, and I think it's really important to kind of let go of the people with whom you can't find any reasonable mutual truth and understanding and becoming heard and that. So but it's really just important to find your own truth and kind of be your own best friend first, and only then try and kind of understand other people. I've also had the tendency of over-understanding why others have to be mean to me, and that's been the big change that I started to kind of try and find my own voice first. I think that's basically what I was thinking.
Beautiful, beautiful, and I'm sure everybody here can relate to that. And you're so right. It's absolutely about finding out who you are and what your needs are and what's true for you. And that is exactly why when we're in conflict or when we feel uncertain, we need to pull ourselves, get into our own space and start having a dialogue with that little girl that's within. Because she will tell us where we need to go and what we need to do, especially for fun. Any other comments on that, or are you happy enough with that? And shall we move on? I have another question.
I'm happy for the time being, thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, so somebody asked, what if contact can't let go when dealing with a narcissist? Narcissists are very special kind of people. They are people who have been really very hurt as children, usually by their parents. They have learned to believe that they are very, very special and that nobody can actually understand how they feel or how special they are, or the depth of their ability to understand or feel. What makes narcissists difficult to deal with, especially in relationships and so on, is that their driving force is, or what makes them do anything is basically the gratification that's in it for them, because they feel so poorly about themselves, or they feel such a depressed self-value, that they will do pretty much anything to feel good about themselves, to gratify themselves, to satisfy their sense of being important or being somebody. The biggest fear of a narcissist is that they're nobody, that they have no sense of identity, and that they are not appreciated or that they're not important. And that's why they play games. It's only a survival mechanism. It's not actually anything necessarily to condemn if you look at it in a neutral way, from a neutral point of view. However, being in a relationship with narcissist is extremely difficult and challenging for the other person who's in the relationship, because they don't know at any given point what's coming up next from the narcissist, because the narcissist they will either be extremely, extremely nice to you, so that, you know, they put you on a pedestal and they let you know that you're the perfect person for them, and then the next something happens, they feel bad about themselves and they start condemning you. They can be so cruel and so nasty, and they will make sure that you understand. It can be subtle or it can be very direct, but they will make sure that you will understand that you are not anywhere near as important as they are. So what if contact can't be let go when dealing with a narcissist? I'm not exactly sure what that means. So the person who wrote that comment, I'm going to give you the mic. And, oh, she's gone. Oh no, there she is. Ha, sorry. The mic is open. So what did you actually mean with that question?
Well, it's really in relation to a friend who I was hoping was going to be on here, because I think she would get so much out of this, but she may hear it afterwards. And the situation, you know, my friend is separated from the narcissist, but they have 2 children.
Yes.
And so, and the children have the right to see their father. So it's those points of contact, and there's a lot of legal stuff involved there. You know, it's very complicated. There's the situation that they're in, but of course he's very good at being incredibly cruel to her, even though they've been apart for a few years now. And it's always been the thing, you know, when he's away, she can relax, and of course as soon as he gets back on the scene or there's any contact, it's just horrible for her. So yeah, so that's the situation. You know, that it can be, you know, just those couple of minutes taking, you know, with swapping the kids over, that sort of undoes my friend, because you know, he's very skilled at doing what he does.
Being cruel.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, basically, there's a couple of approaches that you can take. Depends really what you're like as a person, what your values are. If one of your values is to be really like to get on with people and be, you know, civil and nice, and you want to be like that, you have certain standards and you're not willing to go below them, then what you can do is just not at all listen to what he's saying, not listening any messages that are underlying, just doing the practical things and just taking in whatever the practical arrangements are. So basically creating a filter in what you're hearing and what you're not hearing. So if that works, great. The biggest fear of a narcissist is to lose face. And the worst thing that you can do to a narcissist to punish them, to get them to leave you alone, is to humiliate them in public. But that may not be ideal if you want to keep the relationship civil for your children, and that the children don't get involved in the situation. Now, of course, you don't know, well, I don't know what the relationship is between their father and the children. Like, is he cruel to them as well? Is there something there that, you know, need to be addressed on a family level, or is it just towards her? Do you know that? Is it just towards her, or is it towards the children as well?
Well, it's, you know, according to my friend, I don't know. It's not, probably not as bad at this stage. It wouldn't surprise me if there is some towards the kids, particularly one of the kids. but yeah, I couldn't answer that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's no big, we don't need to go into it and speculate it massively, but basically, like, if you have a relatively, if you're able to, if you want to keep the father in the children's lives, and if it's appropriate to do so, then perhaps just ignoring the person's projection of their fears is the most productive thing to do on a practical level. And if the children are questioned, when the children get old enough, they'll be wondering why daddy is able to speak to mommy like that. You can say, well, because daddy is feeling very bad about himself, so there's several ways that you can deal with it. It really depends on what you want your approach to be, like what are your personal values and how you want to interact with other people. Does that answer your question?
yeah, as good as can be, I'd say, at this stage.
Okay, great. Let me check what else is there. I think I saw another message there. So, okie-doke. Person says, great chat. Well, thank you very much. Great that you're here co-creating with us. And another person says, you always can let go. With narcissists, you really must. And I would subscribe to that. If there's a certain brilliance in narcissists that you don't get with people who don't have narcissistic tendencies. However, there are people who have sought for help, narcissists who have sought for help, and have come through and have realized their patterns are transforming those patterns. And whilst those people can be quite challenging to be in a relationship with, you can have a very deep and meaningful and loving relationship with what one could call a recovering narcissist. But if you have a narcissist who don't have any idea about what they're like, that they are a narcissist, or would never agree to that, because that would be one of the biggest things for narcissists, would be that they would be found out to be that way. They'll never allow that to be found out. So with a narcissist like that, unless you're a qualified therapist, I don't think that you can do much. And even so, even if you were a qualified therapist, is it actually appropriate that you therapize your spouse all the time? That's not really a relationship. That's a therapist relationship. So in intimate relationships, being with a narcissist is extremely draining. And actually, it's an interesting dynamic. I've observed it over the years, and I've certainly had some personal experience in this as well. My father was a narcissist, and it's very interesting that it's often the passive-aggressive people that get attracted to narcissists, because narcissists in the beginning of the relationship will put the other person on a pedestal, and a passive-aggressive person is not naturally, they are passive-aggressive because they don't believe that they're important or that they're not being heard, so they are often attracted to narcissists. And then narcissists keep them on pedestal until they realize that this person isn't perfect, this passive-aggressive person isn't perfect, and then all hell will break loose, because they will start playing their control games, not the narcissist and the passive-aggressive person, trying to manipulate the narcissist to behave in a certain way. And of course the narcissist won't be manipulated. They'll just do whatever they need to do to retain their freedom and their non-existing sense of self. This is the problem with the narcissist. They don't know who they are, and they don't know that they have value, and that's why they behave the way that they behave. And that's why they need to project to the world that they are so special, so that it appears that they know who they are, they know their identity, or that they even have one. Any questions on that before we move on? Anybody want to comment? Anybody wants the mic? Okay, I'll move on to the next question, which is pretty similar. We have already covered some of this, but I'll just make sure that this is being covered. When different things arise, I have been asking a lot more questions. Oh, okay, sorry, I'm just reading this. Not overreacting or speaking out with an open heart. That's not always possible. We have so many different kinds of relationships, and I am realizing my different levels of tolerance of behavior for the people I love. I am enjoying looking honestly from my point of view. So much to learn from ourselves. So basically, this person who wrote, she was just reflecting on things like, like narcissistic behavior, like the first question that we were talking about, the anger and frustration in relationships and so on. And she's just pointing out that depending on the level, the category, if you like, of the relationship, she has different levels of tolerance for any kind of behavior, and she has more tolerance towards the behavior from the people that she loves than just some Joe Blogs up the street. And that is absolutely, I mean, yeah, that's completely normal, and that is like, that's kind of a natural thing in any case. So I don't know that there's huge amount to cover there, but I'd like to read the next. It's not necessarily a question, just a reflection that I'd like to address. I was just in a relationship for the past 8 months and have come out of it with lots of thoughts and feelings and wondering why it ended. I originally thought it was because my boyfriend was a boy and really didn't know how to express his feelings, among many other things. This is common with men. They often suppress many emotions that only come out when they drink. However, I'm now thinking that I could have probably been a bit more honest about my feelings also, or at least recognize that there may have been times when I wasn't completely true. This happens a lot in life with friends too, etc. So maybe in my next relationship I will concentrate on being more open and honest with that person. It would actually be good practice to start doing it now with friends and see what happens and how I feel. I would imagine it to be very rewarding and liberating experience. So that is just beautiful. That person who wrote that message isn't actually on this call right now, but what she's basically saying is that she wasn't attending to her little girl. She wasn't actually living her own life, and she was looking outwards a little bit too much in that relationship and getting the reflections from her partner, her boyfriend, about who she was and how she should be. And now she's practicing, she's out of a relationship and she's practicing being honest with her friends so that she can then bring that quality into her next relationship. And I just have to say, that's just really beautiful. I so applaud that. Does anybody have any comments for this person? Anybody would like to send a message to this person? I can put you on. Okay, nobody's coming forth. No problem. And it's absolutely right, depending on the relationship, whether it's our intimate partner, our immediate family, or a work colleague, or just some random person, we do put different forms of effort into the relationship. And sometimes, as the previous, having read from the previous message, relationships end and we don't quite know why. Sometimes there is no reason. But what you can do, if somebody breaks up with you, what you can do is be with yourself throughout the breakup and see what else comes up, because it's a great opportunity to really attend to yourself. When you're single, it's really, life is a lot less complicated. You don't have to take people into consideration. You can just enjoy your time. You can spread yourself whatever way you want, doing whatever you want with your time, working if that's what you want to do. You can, you know, have a really in-depth hobby or whatever. And those are all really great things. So there's definitely really positive things about being single as well as being in a relationship, really depending on who you are and where you're at. You will know whether or not you should be in a relationship, or you should be in that relationship, or you should be out of that specific relationship, or if you should indeed be single. Any thoughts on that? Anybody want to have any question addressed or any thoughts shared? Okay, we have a comment. I can identify with the last comment, and I think it is something we need to practice. Absolutely. And actually, it's funny, if we look at the neediness in relationships, you are only actually happiest in your relationship when you are most fulfilled in yourself. And what that means is that you know, with or without the relationship, you are valuable, you're amazing, you're beautiful, you're, you know, talented in certain areas of your life, that you know this, that you are worthy of being loved. And that's when you're in a relationship, and for example, if you're in a relationship that you need to grow out of, when you learn to know your own value and you cultivate that value, so you reap what you sow effectively. So you keep seeing good things about yourself, the things that are your strengths, the things that are your weaknesses, you know, things that you want to evolve in, but also the things that really are your strengths and you're beautiful at. Then if that person that you're in a relationship isn't celebrating you as you are, fully as you are, then, you know, eventually, when you keep celebrating yourself, eventually that person will either start celebrating you or they will move out of that relationship. So you are only the happiest when you're most independent. Sorry, you're only happiest in a relationship when you're most independent and least needy of the relationship to happen. So when you know your value, that's when you can have happiness in relationships as well. Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, here we go. In times of stress, it can be hard to see strengths of self. I can understand that breakups can have sense of devalued self. Absolutely. When you break up, especially if you're left, you can feel rejected, you can feel abandoned, you can feel, especially if the person who has broken up with you has told you why you're bad, you can actually start to believe those things of yourself. And that can be really, really hard to come out of. And that's why practicing or rehearsing, seeing your own strengths starts when you're not in that rut. So it starts right now. No matter where you are, Start seeing those strengths and start celebrating yourself, no matter where you are, because the more you practice celebrating yourself, even when something shit happens, you will recognize those moments of brilliance of yourself and you will come out of it a lot faster. So what happens if you have a chronic depressed sense of self and somebody breaks up with you is that you go into depression and you can't get out of it because you've never actually practiced seeing good things about yourself and you've never necessarily actually practiced having fun. But the thing is that a relationship, this is how it actually happens in linear way. So this is non-emotional. What happens is you break up and then you're left with yourself and then you move on. So anytime somebody makes you feel bad, eventually you will do something fun or start moving away from that depressed sense of self. Now, if you have been practicing celebrating yourself, then the time between the breakup, depression, and being able to have fun shortens. So you might actually have, somebody might, for example, break up with you, but you might even feel relieved, but you might just go on and realize in about an hour's time that, oh, actually you're actually feeling okay right now, and you're not you're not measuring your value against what's being mirrored at you, or in this case not being mirrored at you anymore, which is, you know, that you're a part of a significant relationship. You are significant individually, you're significant as a single person, you're significant in a relationship as well. However, it's not because you're in a relationship that you're significant, it's just that you just happen to be in a relationship as the significant person that you already are. So rehearsing, celebrating yourself is so important, because that will give us the tools to move on from a setback a lot faster, whether it's a breakup, whether it's getting fired, whether it's even somebody dying. We learn to realize that life goes on after a breakup, and life goes on after somebody dies, and life goes on after you've been fired. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Breakups can be so freaking difficult and complicated, and especially if there are children involved. It's really important to make sure that you know, try at least preserve the honor of the children, and not try to, like, be honest about what's happening in terms of, like, if somebody's being abusive, then you need to, of course, protect the children from that abuse. But being fair, even when you're fighting, being fair towards the other person, that's where the fastest steps forward are in any relationship rescue operation or in any breakup. The fact that the more honoring you are towards and fair you are towards your ex-spouse, the faster you can move on to actually having a happy relationship, happy new relationship yourself. Okay, we have a question here or a comment. Thank you. I really needed to hear that. Unfortunately, society looks down on single people, particularly women. You know, you'll only be able to see that looking down if you look down on yourself. If you focus on your brilliance, and the person who said that comment, I know you personally, you are brilliant. And please don't, like, reject that comment. There's nothing to look down on. And if you focus on your own brilliance and your own direction and all of your own, you know, your own bliss, and you keep celebrating yourself regardless of what anybody else says, what will actually happen is you'll stop hearing those comments. those single, when I was single, I just said, I had the same feeling that, oh, you know, it's, especially I was living in Ireland at the time, where it's really bad to be single, because unless you're in a relationship and you get married and then you have children, you're actually nobody as a woman. I just basically adopted the attitude of, well, look, I'm too busy to be friggin' caring about what you're saying or what you're feeling about my relationship status. So I'm just going to keep expressing myself and being who I am. And all of a sudden, I was in a relationship again. When I focused on myself, I was back in a relationship. Okay, so a comment. Yes, sounds okay, but it does sound hard celebrating. Like you say, it takes practice. Absolutely. And that's why it's really important to, when you notice that you're having fun, when you're, for example, if you are celebrated by somebody else, like you get say for example at work you get a promotion, or you've had really good results and you get, your boss is telling you how great you are, or maybe on a webinar call somebody says, I know you personally and I know your brilliance, you take it and you celebrate it in that moment when it happens. That's your path of least resistance to learn how to celebrate yourself, is when you're getting it reflected back at yourself from the world. Start learning to celebrate it there first in those instances, because it's not easy. We are, the societies and the families and everything, all that conditioning has taught us to put other people's first. And you know, there's this saying in Ireland, self-praise is no praise. It's such bullshit. If you've done something really well, fucking praise yourself. I just, oh my God, you know, what happened to being fair to yourself? What happened to, you know, admitting that you're brilliant? What's there to admit? Of course you are. Can't you just celebrate it sometimes? You know, maybe one good thing that you could do is in the end of every week or in the end of every day, you point out 3 things that you did really well. You just write them down quickly and just take it from there. So you don't necessarily have to wait for the outside world to reflect it upon you. You can actually be proactive and just say, okay, cool, I'm going to just write down, today I did these things really well. For example, I was really nice to my dog today. That felt really good. Or, you know, I got there, I had a meeting and I was worried that I was going to be late, but I actually got there on time and safe. And that was really, really good. And I drove really well that time. Or, you know, I really nailed that meeting. When that person tried to convince me that I'm wrong, or they tried to convince me to see their point of view, I stood my ground and I did that really well. And I'm really proud of myself. So learning to be proud of yourself, you know, celebrating yourself when it's due. None of this like, oh, I'm so fucking brilliant, or look, you know, like this kind of trying to convince yourself that you're brilliant when you don't actually underlying feel that you deserve it. That's going to be counterproductive to your your conditioning, your new conditioning. But what is productive is actually looking at facts. What happened today that I did really well, and start writing those things down. So this kind of hype, there's this new kind of new age wisdom kind of thing going on, where you hype yourself in believing that you're brilliant and you're all that and you can do things that you never could do before and all this kind of thing. Take it from somebody who's personally tried it, that it took me 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it took me 4 years to actually undo that hype and start feeling my feelings and find out what's really true for me. So basically what I say is, look at the evidence that is there. It's the scientist in me talking. Look at the evidence. What did you actually do really well today? And start building on those points, because those are something that you can actually relate to. They're not just some hype that'll get you all high and then when you realize that it's not actually true, that, you know, you don't have $1 million in your bank account right now, even though you've been pretending that you do when the credit card bill comes in. You know, reality hits, and you realize that your hype wasn't actually true. But perhaps you could say, okay, I'm going to save 10% of all of my income, and when you've seen it in the end of the month, you get your pay, and you put 10% into your savings account, and the next day, having done the transfer, you go into your savings account and say, I did so well putting that 10% into that savings account. Any questions on that? So learn to celebrate yourself when you are you've actually done something. So look back at your day. What were your activities? And if you can't give yourself a good review on anything, look at what you've done that day and imagine if your friend had just done that. If your friend had just finished the accounts for the year, would you feel that they'd done well? That they'd done well finalizing the accounts? And wouldn't you feel that your friend had done a great job, you know, getting such a big job done? Of course you would. You would feel that your friend's amazing having finished it, because you know how difficult it is to do that. So, you know, you would give her, your friend, appreciation and celebration when it's due. And so if for a time being you need, if you can't give yourself acknowledgement, please think of yourself as a friend of yours and learn to give that acknowledgement that way. It's really important that you learn to give acknowledgement so that you can start receiving acknowledgement as well. Okay. A question: by celebrating, do you mean positive affirmations and saying good things about yourself, or is there more? The person who asked that question, I'm going to see if I can put you on the mic. So do you feel I put you on mic right now? Oh, hang on. I can't get you on mic. Oh, there we go. I put you on mic. Do you feel like I've answered your question already?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Ah, right.
Hello.
Sorry. Hello. I'm not used to all of this headset business.
That's okay. Do you feel that what I just covered already answered that question, or do you have other questions relating to that?
No, that covered it perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. It's so lovely to hear your voice.
And you too.
Thank you so much. I'll just move on to the next point then. Let's see. And yeah, so I mean, you can use, there's nothing wrong with using positive affirmations. Absolutely. But please have them, you know, realistic. Like start with something like I can learn to be kind to myself. Or I can learn to support myself, or I can support myself, or I can be kind to myself. So if you don't already believe in yourself, you can say, I can learn to do this, I can learn to do that, I can learn to be there for myself, I can learn more about who I am, or, you know, I get to know who I am more and more all the time. If you already are in the process of supporting yourself or knowing yourself or being there for yourself. So affirmations are really good, but please keep them within a reasonable reach of what the reality is. Okay. So somebody says, do you think so? I have lots of amazing single friends. So obviously that's referring, I'm assuming that that's referring to the comment about society looking down on single people. I haven't experienced society. I literally had that one experience where, you know, when I was single and there was some comment, this is actually one thing that I really want to share at this point. When I got divorced, I had to sell, I had some investment property over in Finland, and I had to sell those properties in order to share the assets. And we got divorced, we shared the assets, and somebody came and said to me, because with the money that I got from the assets, I bought a Jeep so I could pull the horse box because I have horses. and somebody saw the Jeep and they knew that I just got divorced, and they were like, oh, did you make a few bob on the divorce now? Well done for making a few bob on the divorce. And I just said to that person, look, I actually had all the assets in my name and I had to pay my ex-husband out. So anything I have is for my own building. So, you know, please, like, realize that it's not always the man who does everything. So, yes, I agree. I have lots of amazing single friends. I fucking so agree with that. And one of the people that are on this call who felt that they were put down, single women were put down in society, I will not listen that from you. All right? I know you're amazing. And, you know, you just take a moment and stop arguing with me and just celebrate yourself, because you are. You have so much insight and so much knowledge and so much beautiful, beautiful love and appreciation to give that, you know, I'm not going to agree with what you said. Please celebrate yourself. Okay, then we have a comment. When I was single in Scotland, they all thought I was gay, but I was more upset about being called vegetarian. Okay. So, you know, gay, straight, whatever. Yeah. And another message, in Finland, self-praise stinks. Absolutely. That is something that I was brought up as well. You know, not so much the family, but by the society. Absolutely. You shouldn't praise yourself. And that's just complete bullcrap. It's actually the bullcrap in that sentence that stinks, not the self-praise. And another comment, exactly, I have no problem praising myself when it's due. This hyping up shit is crap. I love the technical terms. To me, that's all counterproductive. Absolutely. Give yourself a pat in the back when it's due, like you would with any one of your good friends. You know, it's time. It's time we learn to really just giving ourselves praise and appreciation when we've done a good job. And actually, I feel like this call, even though I only started to record the call in the middle of the call, which, you know, in some instances one could say is a failure of doing this properly. But I am really proud of myself that I noticed that I had that I didn't start recording, and also the fact that I'm not beating up myself anymore about the fact that I didn't record it from the very beginning. In fact, thank you, woohoo, somebody says. In fact, the fact that we've been able to record any of this, I think, is great, and I'm sure the parts that we have recorded will actually help people. And I have the recording of this call, so anybody who's, well, I have a part recording of this call, so anybody who's been on this call, I'm happy to forward it to you as well if you want it. So let me know after the call. You can message me on Facebook. So, does anybody have any questions on what we've covered so far? Because we have half an hour left, and I'd like to talk a little bit about a process of getting to know oneself and learning what people can actually do on a day-to-day kind of where they can find help, how they can get specific reflections back in a safe environment from other people or activities or so on. Is it okay for everybody if I talk about that? How we can actually talk about or get more understanding of who we are. There's a few different processes. So one person has agreed, so I'm going to take it as a yes. Okay. So basically, there's a few different things that is going on whenever you feel anything about yourself. So if you have a judgment about yourself, there's a few things that's going on. Number one, there's a mental process. And often how this comes about is how you recognize that there's something mental that you think about yourself is that you have this reoccurring internal dialogue. So you keep saying stuff like, Jesus, I did that again, or when do I ever learn, or what else could go wrong, or, you know, this kind of thing, that you're anticipating that, or you've already learned that you fucked something up. And that's a mental sign that something's going on. Another thing where anything that you feel about yourself, any emotional situation that you might have going on, is actually physiologically lodged in your body. So it's sitting in your cells. And what that's called is, it's called cellular memory. And if it was really traumatic, it's called cellular trauma. So all of the cells in your body, the muscular cells, the cells of the bone, your brain cells, your blood cells, everything in your body holds memory. It's not just your brain, it's your whole body. So if you have some trauma that's happened in your life, one of the callers has to go right now, so yay! I'll talk to you soon. I'll forward you the recording, no problem. Thank you for attending. Now, getting back into the cellular situation, the cellular memory. When you have, say, for example, a trauma, it's lodged in your body somewhere. And what I learned with years and years and years doing body work since I was a child, really, is that you're able to have somebody help you release that that cellular memory, or to bring it to the surface. So basically uncover whatever trauma might be sitting there by doing actual hands-on body work on you. There's plenty of really, really good therapists around. I have the pleasure of having access to most of the best body workers, body soul workers in the world. I feel very privileged. But it's because I've been doing this work for a really long time, and I know there's a certain level of body work that it's like anything. Like if you're a professor of something, you tend to know a lot of the other professors and so on. So I feel really privileged to be in the company of these amazing therapists, and certainly body work is something that will bring to your attention what is sitting and where. So if you're going to a skilled body worker, they will be pointing out where you're holding tension, and possibly also, if they're intuitive, they'll be able to point out to you what's sitting there and what you need to do in order to release that cellular memory from your system. So any mental process that you might do, say for example you have an internal dialogue and you've realized that you have an internal dialogue, trying to change that internal dialogue without releasing the cellular memory of it is futile, because as long as it sits in your body, it's going to be in your system. So mental processes are really important. Things like affirmations are really important. Things like writing those top 3 things that you did that day, really, really important. But also getting into your body is really important. So it can be body work with a therapist. It can be yoga. It can be Tai Chi. It can be pretty much any martial arts will bring up your stuff. You can also learn about yourself through animals, especially horses. They are usually, the bigger the animal, the more sensitive they are and the more they reflect on what's going on for you. So you can actually find out about yourself with letting an animal mirror you and just listening to what the animal is saying back to you. But, you know, dogs, cats, elephants, they're all great, but I, of course, have a predisposition for horses because they're my first love and my first trust, most importantly. So you can, if you can find for example, there are a lot of people worldwide now who are doing natural horsemanship. You can go and get a lesson or 2 and find out a lot about yourself by doing a few lessons with a natural horsemanship teacher. And also natural horsemanship teachers, horses are often extremely safe, and you can work through a lot of trauma, a lot of emotional issues with just staying with those horses because they're very, very safe. Then, of course, you can do things like women's work, gender work, group therapy, like things that, like what we're doing with the Precious Girl, Precious Woman project, which is to make sure that everybody, every person, every woman on this planet by the end of 2014 knows that they are precious and that they are important and that they do have value to give to this world, and that there is love here for them. And of course, you know, nothing teaches you about your own shit like going into business on your own does. So I've certainly noticed that, you know, having done business coaching with, I coach small and medium-sized businesses, conscious entrepreneurs into building their business through building honoring relationships. And certainly, you know, if you ever get business coaching from anybody who's into honoring type work or sustainable type work or consciousness-driven coaching, you will look at your stuff. So you will certainly get help in recognizing your patterns and looking at what you need to do for yourself and what your values are and so on. It's super, super important. Those are only things that I can relate to really personally because I teach all of those things. I would imagine all of you on this call know the body work that I do, as well as my love for horses and women's work. Obviously, we're on this call doing it right now, as well as the business coaching. But any one of those fields I'm intimately familiar with, which, you know, I can certainly say for sure, if you want to learn more about yourself, do any one of those things. You know, body work can mean doing yoga or doing deep stretching or Tai Chi or some of these things. So you don't have to necessarily, you can do this in your own company as well. I mean, if you have horses, sit with your horse for a bit and see what's actually coming back. Or if you have a dog, do that. It's brilliant. So those are certainly practical things that I know have worked really, really well for people. So I'd really always recommend that people do these types of activities to find out more about themselves and learn to honor themselves more. And also, I have a really special project coming up that I'm super excited about, which is breaking your patterns. That's what it's called, breaking your patterns, and it's going to be a workshop of a couple of hours. I'm probably going to have it available online for people who are overseas, and but we'll be having a really good look at the patterns that you are presenting, what your personal values are, and how you can start living your life according to your values, not the patterns that you have developed as coping mechanisms throughout the life. So, you know, those are just a few examples of things that I'm intimately familiar with. But does anybody have any other ideas on how you might get to know yourself more, appreciate yourself more? Please throw them in. Does anybody want to either have the mic, or would you like to type in things that you might do to honor yourself and get to know yourself and do for yourself? Get reflections from? Okay. I guess any physical exercise, running, etc. question mark. Whatever feels good is good. So if running feels good, it's good. It'll do the job. So please don't, you know, feel that there's a right or wrong answer here. It's what feels good. Do that, and it's the right thing to do for the right thing. Because when you're feeling good, and especially when you're feeling good about yourself and in yourself, when you're feeling good in yourself, that's when you'll get to know who you really are. That's the best reflection of who you really are. Not that you're supposed to feel good all the time, not at all, because that would be completely counterproductive to your evolution. But, you know. Anybody else? Okay. I don't seem to be getting any more comments, questions, and so on. Now, what I'd like to ask for everybody is, I'm going to wrap. Got something. I say that because I just remember doing a body challenge, 6 weeks of intense physical training. Was amazing to see what I could do. Not sure about self-worth. Yeah. To be honest, for women, repetitive exercise is not, or goal-oriented exercise is not soul nurturing. So if you want to, as a woman, nurture your soul, please pick something more along the lines of yoga or stretching or swimming, something sensual, something that your senses are engaged in, not just some repetitive goal-oriented form of exercise, which is it's a very masculine way of exercising. And also running is very repetitive, so often I say to women, if you want to really get into your body and be beautiful, soften up rather than do things to get things done or to achieve things. I mean, nothing wrong with achieving things, but perhaps one of the big challenges for you could be, can I meditate every day for 30 days? And I have another comment here, Pilates was fucking brilliant. I think that pretty much sums it up. Pilates, great. Yeah, anything that gets you into your body without making you feel like you should do something. Great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this call up by, one more thing. It's also important to start doing something about the things you've always wanted to do someday. Ooh, yeah. Kind of, a lot of people call it the bucket list, or things to do before you die and so on. Absolutely. I mean, you can just take a piece of paper and just jot down, if money was no object, if time was no object, what would you want to do? What would I want to do if I could do anything? And then take the essence of that and then start already practicing the essence. For example, if my thing was that I wanted to bring my horses to Australia from Ireland, someday I'll do that. What can I do in the meantime? Well, I can either go and visit them in Ireland, or to spend time with them, to have fun, or I can have some horsey friends over in Australia to get that feeling that I can connect with horses, because ultimately what it's about for me to have my horses in Australia is that I have time to be with horses, to be in that reflective state and to co-create with them. That's the essence of it. So I can still co-create with horses, or I can go and visit mine in Ireland. So absolutely, it is important to start doing those things that you thought that, inverted commas, things you should do or always wanted to do someday. So I'm just going to leave those comments to that for now, and I'm going to wrap up this call. What I'd like to do is, we have 3 callers left on this call. Can I put the mic at you, and if you can just say a few comments on what you found helpful during this call, and if you have any feedback on what we could improve on, that would be really, really useful. So can I get Katja to go first, please? Hello. Is your mic on, Katja? You have self-muted. Okay. Come back to me if you want to share. Louise, do you mind giving us a few words on what you found helpful during this webinar, and if there is any feedback that you'd like to see for future?
Well, I think, yeah, just reiterating for me about, there's value in expressing all the emotions and being allowed, having a platform to do that, and being allowed, just to be allowed to be who who you are, who I am. Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing. Yeah, I mean, I myself personally, yeah, I probably need to look a little bit more inward and think a bit more about all the positive stuff. There's so much emphasis on being okay with the negative stuff. You've got to be okay with positive stuff too. That's probably the biggest thing that I've personally taken out of it. Yeah.
Great. And any feedback on how we can do better?
What, I don't know. Well, this is the first time I've done this, so I quite like how this is presented and how it's done. I mean, I can't see anybody else. The only person I could see is me waving at myself. So I don't know whether I've not turned something on or what, but yeah, it's sort of, yeah, so I've been sort of busy not looking at myself waving my hands.
Okay.
I like the format. I like it, yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you very much for that. And it's been a pleasure having you on the call.
Thank you. It's been it's a pleasure being here.
Great. And I'll ask Sheila next, if you don't mind giving us a contribution or a reflection on what you got out of this call.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, a few nice reminders, Maria, about things I can practice in the future, right away actually. Just
Great.
remembering to honor myself and to listen to myself more.
Yeah.
And again, celebrate the things that I do well.
Lovely.
And not focus on all the stuff that I don't do well, which is my pattern.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start that today. I need to do it right now.
Lovely. That sounds really good. And do you have any feedback on how we can do better in the future with these calls?
No, I think it's working out very well. I don't think I have my camera on. That's probably why Louise can't see me.
I don't think many of us actually. I think Louise is the only one who's left her camera on.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. I mean, we don't have to have those on. I think people can if they want to, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it included many points. It was very wide-ranging and very interesting. Thanks, Maria.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Sheila, for coming. Thank you. It's so lovely to hear.
Great.
Okay. Now I have a comment. No, not a big deal, but kind of funny. Yeah, Louise is the only one who's waving at herself into the camera. It is a little bit funny. Katja, did you want to say a few words? I'll put your mic on for a second. So if you want to say a few words, unmute yourself. And please.
Yeah, I think they are important topics. There were not many things that were new to me, but I think one of the most important things is to, like the others also said, to start focusing on the positive and on the possibilities. I know that I've been struggling with negative things for a long time and struggling with bad relationships, and that's all the struggle was kind of the story of my life. And I think that one of the most important things is to let go of the struggle and just start doing things that make you feel good. And I think that shift is one of the most important things that I've done for myself. Do whatever is good for me, and that has made all the difference. And
Yeah.
what comes to the chat and what has been good, I think it's been really good that we've had kind of the chat on Facebook, so that I kind of know I've said something about myself in the past, so it's easier to kind of speak about my truths. If I would know anybody beforehand, I might not be able to. I wouldn't dare kind of speak so openly. I'm not speaking that openly anyway about anything big issues, but it's still easier to speak a bit more openly than I might in some other circumstances. So that's kind of good that we have a history together.
Yeah.
And if these similar groups, then would get easier to continue the conversation and speak in a different manner. But I also, a lot of thanks. It's been nice. It would have been nice to have a bigger group, but actually it's always good to have a small group, because that makes it easier to kind of take in the details. If there are like 15 people, then it gets a bit more chaotic always. So it was good the way it was, I think.
Right. This is very true. Thank you very much, Katja, for sharing, and I feel really honored that you came on this call. To the other people who don't know, Katja and I went to school together.
we haven't seen each other for like, what, 20 years already?
Yeah,
I think, yeah.
It's so lovely to communicate with you, even if it's just online.
Yeah.
It's really lovely, and I feel honored that you joined the call, and I really appreciate all your input. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to just wrap up this call by just reflecting on what Katja has just said. You know, choose the role you play. Choose your happiness. Choose the role that you want to have. Choose your own life. You can choose the happy moments. You don't have to always just struggle. Choose what is right for you. You are completely worth it. And until next time, it's been a pleasure. Precious girl, precious woman, remember to tell everybody, all the women on the planet that you know, that you appreciate how precious they are. And greetings from this radiant woman from Sydney. It's been beautiful talking to you all. Feel so privileged and so pleasure. Such a huge amount of pleasure. Thank you so very much. And we will talk to you soon.